were standing down.
Yep.
Is that on the condition they get their money back for their shares at all?
No, it is not. Bill has indicated that he wants to sell his shares, and I have indicated that I will buy some of those shares off him. I'm quite happy to do that. But it is up to individual directors as to whether they hold on to their shares or whether they decide to actually sell them.
So regarding his letter he's give you, it's not conditional that he gets his money back for his shares, he will
Bill,
step down in December.
Bill has indicated that he would like to receive money back for his shares, and I have indicated that I will facilitate that sale.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yep.
Question about guarantees. You mentioned director's guarantee, and I appreciate you can't give any detail, but specifically, has Mickey Adams signed up to the guarantees that other directors have signed up to, and potentially Mark Sims was asked to sign up to?
No, Mickey hasn't signed up to the guarantees, but as he's sponsored by Stan Mee is standing the guarantees at the bank.
Hi Mike.
Yep.
I've got a set of questions that have come from a lot of people who are remote Vale fans,
Okay.
from many exotic locations such as the States, Australia, Thailand, Ipswich. So one of the questions that came out, and it's interesting given the statement that you just made about the £100,000
Yep.
that has come out in costs.
Yes.
And you mentioned that this has brought us down just below the break-even figure. However, how much are those figures, in terms of us reaching break-even, impacted by the recent investment that Perry has brought in, which we're all grateful for, but in terms of that investment that's brought in, how much of that is upfront this season rather than being spread over a 5-year period and therefore has an impact on our income over the next 4 seasons after this?
Well, the income that Perry's brought in is moving on to the season we're in now, and really didn't impact. Perry didn't come in till late April, and really didn't impact on the season that we've just finished. So any new income that's come in from commercial and sponsorship will be in next season's figures. None of that will be in last season's account.
Just to continue answering that question then,
Yep.
how does this impact us for the next 4 seasons? So for example, we have a catering deal, which is a 5-year deal.
Yep.
Is all of that money up front, which means that we can't expect any additional funds around catering over the next 5 years?
Well, I'll let Perry answer that one when he comes to the commercial side of it all. I mean, if you want to answer that now? Hang on a minute.
The new catering and pouring rights deal that is being done, actually, and it's a good example of where we're going and where we're trying to go. Over the next 3 seasons, as an example, it will increase our guaranteed income across food and drink by 5 times. And it's easy for me to sit here and say, I absolutely assure you, it's increasing our income. If we take last year's food and drink income, it increases it by 5-fold minimum over the next 3 seasons.
So that's a steady drip income?
Yes, it's being paid over. I mean, the catering deal is being paid over 5 years. The pouring rights deal is a 3-year agreement, and that's being paid over 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Hi Mike.
Hi.
You know this deal that's going to go through, you say you're very, very confident about it. What happens if it doesn't go through? Because we've still got Mr. Bratt and Mr. Oliver on the board, and that's what's upsetting a real large amount of the support.
Well, Glenn Oliver has absolutely nothing to do with that. Glenn hasn't said that his not standing for re-election is anything at all to do with new investment coming in. What Glenn has said is he's been part of this from the start, and he would like to be involved and see it through to the AGM in December. Bill's, yes, that is conditional on that new investment coming in, but and it's impossible to say it won't, that this won't happen, but I'm very, very confident that it will happen.
Could you just say if it's the actual American amateur or is it somebody else?
No, we are talking to various people. The name AmeriTurf keeps coming up because there was announcements made in May about AmeriTurf's interest in the club and sponsorship of the club. We are talking to other people.
So it's not AmeriTurf?
I didn't say it wasn't AmeriTurf. I said we are talking to other people.
Mike, if I can just, if you can just clarify for us that the new investment that is being discussed at the moment, that it doesn't exclude any further investment from other people after that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, we will listen to any investment proposals that are out there.
Quickly thrust into my hand. Oh, Mike.
You've got to stand up and do 5 minutes stand up for it.
Mike.
Yeah.
Let's see. This was a good one. Now that Bill and Glenn have apparently tendered the resignations,
Yes.
will the chairman and CEO be resuming discussions with Mark Sims, as you've said,
Yes.
but considering that Mark's unreasonable demands have now been met?
Well, they haven't. Mark's demands went further than just the resignation of Bill and Glenn, and I shall be having further talks with Mark about that. We did suggest to Mark that when he came back from holiday, he talked to us about the conditions. Let's call them conditions because that's what they were. And Mark declined to do that. He has now indicated, though, that he would, and I think Dave will confirm this, Dave, is this right? He has indicated that he would like to meet with me.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, you know, as we would sponsor for Mark Sims, two things, I think, here, and I want to be fair here to Mike and to Perry, because I think the positiveness is still with the two people here, and the hang-up is with people who are not here. I attended the meeting, as I was saying, a few weeks ago, with Mark and with Perry, Mike, Glenn Oliver and Bill Bratt in relation to questions that Mark had in relation to his due diligence. I can actually say that without any shadow of a doubt, Perry and Mike Lloyd were absolutely effervescent, if that's the right word, at wanting to try and bring Mark Sims on board. Glenn was slightly less so, Bill Bratt remained silent. So I think it's very fair from, say, to Mike's point of view, that yeah, it was a very, very positive attempt. And I can also say from Mark's point of view, because I did speak to him yesterday, Mark would have no problem working with Mike Lloyd as chairman of Port Vale Football Club.
Thank you.
Jean?
Yeah. Can I ask a couple of questions,
Yes,
please, Mike? First of all, if AmeriTurf aren't involved, I think you need to tell them, because their website is absolutely covered with stuff about the Vale, so it might be polite if they're not involved to mention it.
I didn't actually... Sorry, Jim, but I didn't actually say that they weren't involved.
Including references to having signed contracts with us. So,
well, I really do not know where that's come from, but I can assure you that no contracts have been signed.
Well, I'll show you the page later.
Just a moment. There was an original contract, Jean, signed prior to the EGM with regard to their sponsorship. It now goes further than that, and we are in talks with them, as we are with other people. I can assure you, as we are with other people. I know you're laughing, but it's perfectly true. And you might be surprised, but we are in talks with other people and other sponsors about it. I think what's on there refers probably to that first contract prior to the EGM.
Right. Secondly, you talked about the £100,000 costs,
yes,
of which you attributed yesterday on Radio Stoke to the protests.
Yep.
You mentioned that the cost of an EGM is £12,000,
yep,
and the cost of the legals surrounding that being approximately £60,000.
Yep.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. At the AGM last December, Mr. Bratt said that it was his intention to actually call an EGM he would issue a blueprint for the future within 5 weeks and then call an EGM following that.
He did indeed.
So
yeah.
the club were intended to call an EGM anyway,
Yes.
and therefore I assume those costs would have come upon the club irrespective of whether the protests had taken place. Is that not true?
I think the cost of handling the EGM would probably have been £12,000. I don't think there would be a difference there. What you wouldn't have had is the huge amount of legals that were there.
Would you explain why?
Well, because obviously you've got to be, you've got to do everything. What's the expression I'm after? Well, if you're calling an EGM yourself, right, that's not involved with protest or whatever, then you can do that without racking up lots and lots of legal fees. When you have all the questions and everything else firing in that we've had on this EGM, then you're going to have a lot more. It's not rocket science, that really.
Right, so the £60,000 legal fees were to maintain your position rather than
No,
to the EGM?
well, I can't. Just explain that a little further, Jean. I don't want to get
Well,
into an
you're saying
argument
that-
with you, but to
No, I understand what you're saying, Mike, but you're
Yes.
saying that the cost of the EGM would have been the same, but because it had been called by North London Valiants instead of yourself, you have greater legal fees. Well,
yes.
I can't understand why that's anything other than you trying to maintain your position.
I don't. I don't follow that, Jean. I think that the. Well, let me answer the question. I don't follow it because what you're actually saying there then is that we spent £60,000 just to try and keep ourselves on a board of directors. I don't agree with that. Well, it's simple as that. We beg to differ.
Hi Mike, I've spoken to you on a few occasions recently. Thank you very much for agreeing to come here today, both yourself and Mr. Dickey. A couple of things. First of all, with regards to the £100,000 which has been mentioned,
Yes.
rightly or wrongly, came across as a kind of a sideswipe at the people who have protested, with good reason by the way. But don't you agree, just for the cost of actually organising a simple meeting like this, it's actually the board of directors that cost the club £100,000 for not doing so, not discussing the worries, not discussing the concerns of the vast majority of fans, because even those who are constantly attending the so-called openness of the board and the willingness of the board to discuss, bearing in mind supposedly a fans-run club, up until yourself attending the previous meeting and today, the board of directors have done nothing whatsoever apart from ignore completely and remain silent, or take side swipes, as with Mr. Oliver in particular, at every opportunity, including his deluded and ridiculous statement yesterday, stating that B2001 will leave a legacy of success. The second question I'd just like to ask, a very quick one. There's the proposed and impending suggestion of investment.
Yes.
Obviously, the situation that we've seen ourselves in over the last 12 months with the on-off saga with regards to the potential of a £5 million investment over a number of years, with the challenge of trying to get to the championship and getting this club back on its feet again. We can obviously assume that the investment that's coming in is going to be millions, not just a few £100,000, which is just going to paper over cracks, put a plaster over a gaping wound, and see us back in the same situation in 12 months' time. Because if that's the situation, I can wholeheartedly say from my point of view that my name, which is on a brick at Port Vale, a lifelong Vale fan, 37 years I've watched the club home and away. I'm sorry, but I will not be coming back to support the regime which has failed and killed this club over 8 years. V2001, in principle, is an excellent idea. The charter is there for all to see. It's been used as toilet paper by the board. The fans have been ignored. We want action. We don't want 2 to 3 months, secrecy and silence. We want action. We want people on board who are dynamic, not resting on laurels, not hiding away from fans, to be upfront. But we need millions, not hundreds of thousands, to get this club back where we belong and this not rotting in the 4th division. Thank you.